Hi everybody, welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. I'm Phil Fatica. Two guys you're going to meet in just a moment represent an organization that I'll bet you a nickel you know everything about it, and they're going to tell you even some more today. So first of all, let's say hello to the guy sitting next to me. On your left is Jerry Skripczak. Jerry is the president of SUNS. Next to him, Ed Kissel. Is there anybody who doesn't know these two gentlemen? Ed is the vice president of SUNS, and my question to you is, S.O.N.S. It is an acronym, and it stands for?
Save Our Native Species.
Save Our Native Species of Lake Erie.
It was started by a group of individuals who thought the fishing in Erie was below par back in 1981. They decided that possibly the cause of that below par fishing was introduction of non-native species into the lake, and they felt that the competition was taking away from the fishing that was provided by nature. So they decided to call the club Save Our Native Species, and it evolved into Sons of Lake Erie, as we call it now.
Yeah, yeah. And you've been there since the beginning, I would tend to think.
I came in a year later. Okay. I came in 1982. And
Jerry and I came in about the same time. There was 2 voids in the directorship, and we were both asked to serve, and we've been now going into our 34th year.
You started when you were 7, right?
Right.
Very young.
How many members do you have?
3,000.
3,000.
3,000.
Amazing, amazing.
Like
I said, everybody knows who these guys are, because if you fish, I fish. I'm a member of SUNS. By the way, we'll discuss that. You know that. At the beginning, the threat was what, compared to what the threat would be to today?
Well, at that time, the fish stocks seemed to be low.
Okay. Was that the 3CU guys? No? Yes?
No, 3CU were the trout.
The trout
organization that has brought our steelhead program online to where it is today.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The species that they thought at that time was hindering our local population was the introduction of salmon to Lake Erie by the Fish Commission. And the fellows wanted to do something to increase our perch and walleye population. Sure. So the first thing we did was to go ahead and try to reduce the catch quantities, the limits. And that we were successful in doing. At that time, there were no limit for panfish at all. And then after our intervention, they changed the rules to 50. And then as the perch population declined even further, it went back down to 25. And now it's back up to 30 per day.
Yeah.
So we feel that changing the limits was a big help. And then also, at that time, we had still what was left of a fairly viable commercial fishing industry. And they use gill nets. And the gill net is a killer. It kills the fish when you take it out of the water. And one of the things that they lobbied for was the banning of the gill nets. Now, it wasn't new because New York, Ohio, and Michigan on Lake Erie had already banned the use of gill nets in commercial fishing. So our small section of water was being used by just a few fishermen. So they also reduced the limits for the commercial fishing, also banned the use of gill nets. That took about a 6-year process before they're completely off the lakes. Since then, I think we've realized an increase in at least our perch population.
How do you know that? You measure it? Or does the Fish Commission, you work hand in glove pretty much with them? I mean, that's a lot of data that you have to gather and then make a decision based upon that data where you're going to go in the next year or the next season.
Well, as Jerry mentioned, the Fish Commission plays an important part. We cannot do any promulgation, which we do have a hatchery down on the bayfront, to try to enhance the species, but due to their regulations, they go out each spring and fall and do an assessment of our portion of Lake Erie. Now, they've been sharing that responsibility with New York and Ohio to come up with the figures that are needed to hopefully keep the balance of the different species in line so that we do have the opportunity to fish.
Let me just, a second here. There's been a lot of discussion lately about the algae that is growing in the western end of the lake. The Toledo people were doing without water. Is that a threat to the fish population? And before that, it was the zebra mussels that were the invasive species. And now they're looking at those carp, those Asian carp, and then there's now the latest thing I read was, well, maybe not so much. So 3 things there: the algae, the zebra mussels, and the carp.
There's a certain biomass fish in the lake, each competing for the same food. And the invasive species like gobies and zebra mussels, they cut into the nourishment that the fish use, especially when they're very small. There's a danger that the toxicity of the algae will cause the killing off of some larvae and some species of zooplankton that the fish consume. There's a section of Lake Erie that's been there for years. It kind of moves around. It's called a dead zone, and it's mainly caused by the dying of algae. It takes the oxygen out of the water. Anoxia forms in the lake, and there's nothing lives in that section of it. So there's a big danger that if we don't do anything about the addition of nutrients to the lake, such as fertilizers and human waste, this is going to get to be a real problem, and it's a concern. As far as the Asian carp goes, they're an aggressive fish. Again, they compete for the same type of food fish that our small fish they eat, and therefore anything that's going to change that delicate balance out there. The lake is monitored not just by the Fish Commission, it's monitored by what's called the Lake Erie Committee, and that includes members of the states of New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Ontario.
I was just going to ask you about Canada.
Canada. They have a committee that meets twice a year, and they're the ones that set the limits on the harvests of the lakes. And they're advised by their fish commissions and their different biologists on what they think the assessment are as far as the biostocks go.
Now, I'm a member of SUNS. When you join, you get a newsletter, which I have right here. You can also buy a great-looking hat, and distinguishes and says, I am a member of SUNS. But other than that, beside those two, do you have a website where people can go?
Yes, it's sonsoflakeerie.org.
And is it S period, or
Nope,
is it just S-O-N-S?
Spell it right out, sonsoflakeerie.org.
.org, and then they'll have everything that you need to know about what's going on.
We do we have a lot of pictures of all the kids that we take fishing, and you'll find all of them on a website. You'll find upcoming events. You'll find some of our past accomplishments. You can look at some of our upcoming projects that we're working on.
I like when I get this, and it talks about the buckets in there, and it talks about, and you're not afraid to do a little finger pointing about the people who leave the place messy. Pick up after yourself, won't you please, when you're done, and thank you for saying that. By the way, were you always a fisherman, both of you?
I go back, to 7, 8 years old fishing. I was raised on the Lower East Side, about as close as you could get to the bay on 2nd and Wallace.
Sure.
So our joy was crossing the railroad tracks and going down along the waterfront.
My grandpa took me fishing when I was small, and my dad didn't fish, but I got tied in with a bunch of my friends when I got to be a teenager, and they taught me, and we went from there.
So this is not a job, this isn't what you did for a living. This is like you love this. What did you do before you were retired?
I was a police officer for the city of Erie for 32 years. I was in charge of the forensics unit when I retired.
Yeah. Okay, and Ed, you're not retired.
No, I'm still working.
Good for you.
My career, basically, after getting out of the service was 10 years at the Boston store, and then 41 years at my business of Anderson Vacuum.
Yeah, nice. You have, your organization has so many wonderful things that you do, and we could take days to discuss them. Because without you, a lot of what we take for granted today would just simply not be there. You've managed to just reach down, as you said, and say, we're not doing something right here. We can change it. So let me ask you this. What are some of your most recent projects?
Well, the most recent with a price tag put to it was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. After 25 to 27 years was the establishment of the fishing platform on the end of Liberty Park where the big white tent is down on the bayfront.
Okay.
That took that long in the support of a number of people to come up with the funding source and to get it put in place, which has been a big success.
was an $840,000 project.
Really?
Between
That
our
much.
contributions and DCNR and the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission and the Port Authority and the DEP and the Coastal Zone, we managed to put it together. And it came out really nice. We just used it last week during 8th grade Tuesdays.
Yep.
And we had 275 people fishing off the pier. We offered them an opportunity to fish for free, and we provided them with bait and rods and reels, and they had a ball for about 3 hours.
When I was growing up, the great place to go to was Frontier Park. You go down the hill, and you arrived, if you could send your, quote, sled or wherever you were on, a cardboard box, you could send it into Cascade Creek. That would be the big deal. You were a man among men. And at the time, nobody gave much thought about that polluted, dumpy, can-infested, garbage-infested thing that ran down to the lake because it was out of sight, out of mind, in the water. Who cares?
I'm going to leave Ed to talk about it.
But trumpet.
Ed to talk about it. When he was president, he was the one who initiated our sponsorship of what was called Adopt a Stream. Ed?
Yep. Yes, we petitioned the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission to adopt that stream and try to get it cleaned up enough that trout would be stocked there. And over the years, we have attained that, and now we do have other groups who help with the cleanup. There's been probably close to $1,500,000 put in that section in Frontier Park on bank stabilization and all. And we work in conjunction with the Lake Erie Arboretum, and you can see the results down there. Opening day of trout is very good in the sense that people who cannot get out into the county to fish the trout streams east and west get the opportunity to come downtown basically and fish a stream within a rural area, which is very accessible to the people.
Would it be fair to say that your efforts led to what's been termed a swimmable bay that was celebrated by swimming across to the Erie Yacht Club there? Your efforts spreading out to all of these other tributaries that come into.
We were a part of
People
that.
aware of that ecological, environmental process?
We were part of that effort because Cascade being the most westerly and largest stream going in, there's one up towards the Ridge Center called Scott Run that also contributes to some of the problems, and Millcreek on the eastern part of the bay. By working again with the DEP, the city of Erie, there are a lot of contributions made to come up with the swimmable bay, which we were part of back in 1988, and when the effort started to clean up the bay.
Yeah. What about the buoy that now floats out in the lake? Any input from you people on that? Is
we
serving a useful function, or just
I think it's a great function. I think the guys who are down in Pittsburgh and want to know what the lake conditions are, they're going to get a real-time estimate of what at least what the wave and wave heights and wind direction and wind velocity is, and I think that will help in their decision-making whether to make the 100-mile ride to get here. We're really hopeful that we could get more support for the buoy, because this is not just in the water and staying there. It has to be removed from the water every year in November and be recalibrated and readjusted, and that's about a $3,000 to $4,000 price tag. Now our club, the Sons, has donated the funds in order to do this fall, and the Regional Science Consortium, I'm sure, could look for more sponsors to keep this thing going. I think it's an important thing.
Okay, that's good. You mentioned a 100-mile drive from Pittsburgh. Ever a dollar figure placed upon these people who will drive and fish and take over the motels, hotels?
We know from an impact study that Senator Earl, when she was in, did, that about $10 million is contributed just to the one species, the steelhead. The perch and walleye study was not completed, but we can assume that with what we have here in that species alone, that it would be equal plus that kind of dollars that are brought into this community from that effort with the fisheries.
One of the things that we face with politicians, they look at us as a bunch of old guys that go fishing and having a good time. But it's not true. It's an industry. Fishing has been an industry in Erie for over almost 200 years. Back in its heyday, we were called the freshwater fishing capital of the world. And if you look at the back of my shirt on the way out, it'll say Freshwater Fishing Capital of Pennsylvania, which was designated by the state legislature 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have to convince people that we need to support the fishery, either by providing boat launch ramps, by providing places for them to get gas, providing motels, hotels, because they're here to fish and they're here to spend money.
Darn right they are. I was down at Walnut Creek a couple weeks ago, and man, you couldn't find a place in the parking lot that somebody didn't have their truck and their trailer or their car and their trailer. It was loaded. And the walleye were running, and they were hitting them. And you could see as soon as they had their limit, they were coming back in saying, we got our limit. And, you know, you're right, that's huge business. When people are driving 100 miles, they want to come and catch those fish, stay here, drink our beer, stay and eat our food, and spend money. Absolutely, it is an industry.
To piggyback on that boating industry, we also looked at the general public, which we call the bucket fishermen, try to make sure that they have a place along our waterfront to at least get to the water and fish. And the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, along with the urging of a number of clubs, instituted a Lake Erie stamp that's $5. And that stamp, the funds from that are dedicated to access and to acquiring land accessibility, and that has worked tremendously. So if the lake or the bay is extremely rough, you can get up into the streams onto private property that have been part of this program, opening up more opportunities.
Do you need permission then from the property owner to do that?
No, if they're part of the program, their land is designated and there's signage that tell you where you can go. And it has really developed into a large program, and there's over $1 million in that account now. For any landowner in listening audience that would like to participate or look and hear about the program, can give the Sons a call at the 453-2270, and someone would contact them and explain the program. And it's a benefit to them. They get the money, and it allows more public fishing.
Going along with that, again, the website is the Sons, and it's S-O-N-S, of Lake Erie. One word? No spaces between Sons of Lake Erie.org. I didn't realize this. Camera on the Bicentennial Tower.
Yes, we've had that in there about 9 years now.
You didn't tell me what. You did this and
it's
didn't
accessible
tell me.
on our website. It's fully controlled. You can actually control it. The only problem with it is it has to be accessed using a Windows Explorer, Internet Explorer.
Internet Explorer, okay.
You have to use it. It will not work with any other web browser.
Okay, Chrome or...
Won't work with Chrome, just Internet Explorer. And when you access it, you can actually control it. You can pan, tilt, and zoom.
Wow.
And hopefully we can, at some point, it's not a great camera. We would like to get a broadcast quality camera up there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you have so many projects that dealt with the actual streams and the waters, but what are your projects that necessarily don't just involve the stream? I mean, is there anything for fishermen and safety or boating and cameras? Or you're going to enter into the discussion about we've got to stop polluting the streams because the peninsula is being shut down, there's certain beaches. And, I mean, this isn't a big deal.
The hatchery, a lot of people don't realize that we do promulgate a couple species of fish in early spring.
And again, the hatchery is located?
Right at the foot of Chestnut Street, where it was actually, it's the Water Authority office building adjacent. We're right to a small building, but it's only open during the spring season for a couple months where we get the eggs and hatch them. But we do that on a continuing basis, and have put millions of small walleye fry, 1/4 of an inch, into Presque Isle Bay is the only place we can put them.
Along the lake then, from Buffalo to Toledo, other places like you doing the same thing?
There are some fishing clubs, but mostly they specialize in trout or steelhead, like 3CU, Westville Conservation Club, Albion Sportsman's Club. They do raise fish, but mostly they're the trout species.
Not on the scale that you raise them either?
Right. We do hundreds of thousands where they do 50, 60, 300, 500.
Not to diminish what they do at all.
No.
They also are putting a good-sized fish when they stock the fish.
Yes.
Our fish are basically larval stage. Walleye and perch will not feed in captivity. They have to be in the lake. or an ocean. If you have a large enough pond and there's enough daphne and zooplankton available, they'll carry on. Now, we've been able to take small quantities of walleye and perch and bring them up to an inch, inch and a half in our tanks, but there's just not enough feed for them. Yeah. And that's the limit is.
Down at the Town Ridge Center, the screen down there talked about the sturgeons in Lake Erie. Are there still some?
Yes, there are. In fact, they caught 2 of them for sure 4 years ago. And I heard rumors that somebody caught one again this year, but I have never.
I thought I heard that too.
I have not been able to confirm that. The sturgeon that's in the Ridge Center is kind of a pet of ours. We've adopted it. The poor thing keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we have to cover bigger and bigger tanks.
Yes, yeah.
We just bought it a new home at $3,500 worth, a rectangular tank instead of a circular tank.
Yeah, so. I saw it. I was there just a little while ago.
She's still growing. We also fund the. She eats shrimp. We also fund her feed too.
Loves that shrimp, huh?
Yeah.
I want to just show you that when you subscribe and you become a member of Sons, and it's a really nominal amount of money. What is it again, Tim?
$5 a year for adults.
Yeah, $5 a year.
$4 for seniors, $3 for kids.
You get all kinds of information in the newsletter. And one of the things that you wanted me to ask you was sponsorships. What do you mean by that?
Well, we do a lot of sponsorships ourselves. A lot of the money that we raise, and a lot of clubs, like for instance the Small Games at Chance, they're always looking for things to, so they give us money, and we turn it around and look at different programs that different organizations have, especially fishing, like 3CU or other fishing clubs that need some money. Like we sponsor through our fellowship or association with the Fish Commission, we sponsor some other fishing clubs for food and equipment that they need to raise trout. We've sponsored a lot of environmental. We have sponsored Presque Isle cleanup for the last 5 years. Right. We have fed 800 people a year for the last 5 years when they clean up Presque Isle. So a lot of the money that we raise, we in turn put it back into the other organizations.
You have such knowledge, you have such ways of doing things that are so successful. Does the state ever ask you to come down and say, teach us throughout the state how to make it successful as you have it up here in Erie?
No, the only thing that we did catch some flack on, we instituted a loaner program at the library of checking out a rod and a reel and a tackle box, and then a coupon that the person can go over to the bait stand and get bait, so they can actually take a library card and get that out. There was a little concern that this was a program that we took away from somewhat of the Fish Commission, but we didn't. We just used it for the benefit of providing that opportunity for the kids who cannot afford a rod and reel. And off of that program, we were able, if we know of a person who's continually checking out a rod, reel, and a tackle box, we have a program, we will give them some gear so they don't have to do that, to have their own.
Yeah, that's just incredible. That's really nice. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We've changed our focus. When we first joined, we were in our 40s, and we were.
Well, you're only 43 now.
Oh yeah. And we were building and fixing, and we did a lot of construction work on a bay. But we've all aged, and.
You're looking for younger members?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay.
All the time. But we've put our focus more towards education and the environment and.
Has it paid off?
Oh, I think so.
I think so too.
And
the people's changed their attitude about this.
We're going to be doing one more building project in October. We build fish habitat.
Condominiums for fish.
We call them crappy condos.
Crappy condos.
Crappy condos. The Presque Isle Bay is literally insignificant as far as structure goes. I mean, it's just sand.
Yes.
So we have built over 250 structures over the years that have been placed in different locations throughout the bay and in Presque Isle Marina and in Waterworks Pond that afford the little tiny fish a place to hide from the big fish till they grow up. So we're going to be doing 20 more of these in August in conjunction with Sea Grant.
Okay.
And we did 20 last year. We'll do 20 more this year.
Generally speaking, then, the Lake Bay is pretty healthy with the fish. I mean, yeah. You're instituting the net policy was, I would think, enormous because they were slaughtering them.
Well, for many years there was no agreement between Canada, United States, and the Canadians are still using gill nets.
Okay.
But there was no agreement on setting the limits. And all the research that I did, it just seemed like year after year they would completely wipe out one species and go to another and to another, so finally all we got left is walleye and perch. Well, back in 1920, walleye and perch were not considered the best eating.
You're
we were
right.
looking at whitefish and Cisco or lake herring, and so when they started disappearing, and the blue pike was next, and they gave up on a blue pike, then they went to the yellow pike. So you can see historically had some of the things that are in place today, as far as pollution control and limits, we would have one heck of a fishery out there. It's still one of the best producing lakes in the world.
I agree, and I like what's on the back of your shirts. Again, tell them that it says on the front, Sons of Lake Erie, which is Save Our Native Species, but on the back it says
Freshwater fishing capital of Pennsylvania, Erie County.
Erie County, absolutely. Ed, you get the last word here.
Well, you know, we appreciate all the help we can get, and we try to return as much of that, and we do work with the federal, state, and local legislatures as much as, Phil, you know, we work with county government to try to make our community better, try to bring people to our community and appreciate it, and do everything we can to promote a healthy waterfront in Lake Erie, both for people who fish and don't fish, who just want the leisure of coming to the water, being able to put their feet in the water, not just being told they can walk along the water, but we want them to touch the water and have the enjoyment that we have had in our youth and in our aging to enjoy our natural resources.
I know they won't say this, but I will, because it's my show, and I can say this, that because of these guys, because of Jerry Skripczak and Ed Kissel, we have what we have today, and because of the people who help you too, I know. But you guys are the face of the head, you've been there the longest, you've made sure that this was going to work, and it did work, and I wish you continued success, because we're looking at an economic engine there. You know, this is as much of a startup business or entrepreneurship as anything else, and you said it, it's an economy. It's a multi-million dollar economy that we have at our doorstep. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for your time. And thank you for joining us today. You can join Sons real easy. They put on great fish fries. You have great parties too. I might tell people that. I'm Phil Fatica. Until next time, I'll see you on the stream. Take care.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.